Go. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Tes Proos, wearing both hats again, as first of all as President of South Africa and also as the founder of Crystal Events Africa. Very excited to have some powerful ladies joining us today. All three of them very solid PCOs. We have Nina Frozen-Pretorius from the conference company in Durban. Then we have Johan Telahan from Flawless Events in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, and we'll shortly be joined by Doris Parsons from SRC in Rwanda. In the meantime, what I'd like to do is hand over to each lady, do a short introduction and give us some background on your business and where you're at. So shall we start with you, Nina?
Thanks, Tes. Thanks for the opportunity. Lovely to be on this forum today with all of you. Yes, so I'm the CEO of the conference company. We established this PCO business 23 years ago with representation in Johannesburg, Cape Town, and then our head office in Durban. And I think that like everybody all else around the world and other PCOs, COVID-19 pandemic has really impacted on our businesses tremendously. I think we have had to make really quick decisions on moving forward. Most of our staff are able to work remotely, so we're quite fortunate with that, all cloud-based, all able to action and deal with clients. And what we've seen the trend as being is that most of our clients, international associations and local associations, are moving out their meetings and events to later on in 2020. So the fourth quarter, potentially October, November. Ultimately, many of our international, particularly American clients who are quite conservative in their approach, are looking at the earliest quarter one of 2021. But the majority of the meetings are, I would say, quarter three and quarter four of 2021. So really 2020 looks very much like there is not going to be as much business. From a government perspective and a safety and a pandemic, I have got some slides to share, but perhaps Tes, that'll be a little bit later. But the South African government's expectation is obviously that our curve is going to hit its peak in September. And I think the preparatory work to deal with that from a healthcare issue is being looked at and dealt with. And I think with all our borders being closed, with meetings of 10 people or more not allowed, it really has put severe restrictions on the conferences and events sector and obviously PCOs at large.
Absolutely. It is encouraging, though, to hear that there's still business on the books and on the cards for later this year. So people aren't all, cutting and running. That is very encouraging indeed. And in fact, yesterday, during a short Zoom call, we heard from a South African incentive operator that they just confirmed a new international group for October. So things are clearly not all doom and gloom out there. It's nice to hear some positive feedback. Thanks for that, Nina. Johan, can you tell us your story, please?
Sure. Thanks for having me, and good to see you both. So I run a company called Flawless Events. We've been in business for about 12 years here in Ethiopia. We do a lot of corporate and government events. About 80% of our business is in Ethiopia, and then the 20% we rotate around different parts of Africa following our clients. Pretty much similar as Nina has said, we've been pretty much hit starting mid-March. So it was pretty much business as usual up until then. And everything has kind of either been canceled or moved further into the year. What I have noticed interestingly though is some clients have said, let's do end of year. And then, as you know, October, November is crowded with corporate events anyway, pretty much around the world. And, clients tend to kind of go for similar experts to be on their panel or their attendee list. So I've now seen push towards early of 2021 as well, which was interesting. We've had a client for October 2020 actually feel like they couldn't get the momentum going with their stakeholders, so they actually pushed a whole year out, which I thought was a bit different. In Ethiopia, unlike South Africa, we're not on a complete lockdown. Movement is allowed. There's been a recent state of emergency, which kind of reinforces some of the, social distancing, wear a mask, no more than 4 people together, gathering and so forth. But I think the government just felt like the country will not be able to sustain a complete lockdown with a majority of people living in poverty. And they do need the day-to-day movement to kind of earn their living. So we're kind of watching it. Our numbers are pretty low. It could also be related to the fact that our testings are low. But so far, the borders are still open. At least Ethiopian Airlines is still operating. And we're not on a complete lockdown as of yet.
That's very interesting to hear. And of course, we have the exact opposite in South Africa, where all movement, except for going to a shop for topping up emergency supplies and going to a doctor, all other movements restricted, even within provinces. We are, in fact, expecting to hear from the president tomorrow evening, and we're all waiting with bated breath to hear if some of those restrictions will be lifted. And of course, nothing is going to happen until those restrictions are lifted.
Here we are.
Doris, you have joined us. Thank you so much.
All right, but why is my video not on?
You probably need to press a little button there.
Which one?
If you go to your top right, you'll see 3 little dots. And if you drop down on that, it should start your video.
You mean on the gallery? Oh, those dots, okay.
Yeah.
No, it's actually it's actually telling me to stop the video, so it should be on.
Yeah, well, we are recording, Doris, so let's see if we can get your
This is what happened last time, Nina, remember? I couldn't get my video on. But only with, because it's literally telling me stop video, so that shouldn't be the case.
Are you on your phone or on a laptop?
On a laptop. Let me.
I think, Doris, we can hear you loud and clear. So should we maybe continue the conversation, and then what we've done up until now is just had everybody introduce themselves and talk about where the business is at. Just interesting comparing Ethiopia, not in complete lockdown, with the airlines still traveling and the borders open, whereas South Africa, we've got the exact complete opposite. So obviously very restrictive for any sort of event and meeting business. So on that note, let's hand over to you to give us a perspective from Rwanda and possibly Tanzania, if you can cover both regions.
Yeah. Well, Rwanda, this is the 5th week now. We've been on lockdown for 5 weeks. Been extended until the end of April, and then they'll review that. So I'm pretty sure, well, we'll know what's going to happen after that. So yeah, everything's totally shut down. Literally, movement is 100% shut down. No working, no, only necessary movement, as is the case with all the other countries, I would imagine. As far as Tanzania is concerned, Tanzania is not on lockdown. The borders are still open. But they are sort of, organizations are taking initiatives on their own to, social distance themselves and work from home, but it hasn't been a government directive for everything to be at a standstill yet. So it may be business as usual, but it's not really, because nothing's really happening. In as much as the borders are not closed, but nothing's coming in.
Sure. So yeah, no sense in trying to sell anything.
Is shut down anyway.
Yeah. So
sorry.
No, that's fine, Doris. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, great. In terms of your client base, do you mostly have regional or domestic clients, or a lot of international?
It's more international, to be quite honest. I mean, more international, few regional, from the conferencing and space. Yeah. It's more international, yeah.
And
very few regional.
Presumably your business has also kind of come to its standstill until we have this virus under control, or are any of your events still going ahead?
Well, mercifully, we haven't had cancellations, but we've had postponements. for December. One of the conferences we're managing is going to happen in the second week of December, and the other one will be happening in October, and we have another one postponed to next year. So essentially, we're at a space where we're renegotiating the contracts and trying to agree that, you know, what is the way forward now that time has been extended. It's not like we'll be sitting down and twiddling our thumbs. There'll still be work that has to be done, and there'll still be deliverables that have to be met, especially with the dates that are in December. That December is a tricky date anyway. I mean, getting delegates or even speakers to reconfirm for mid-December is tough, because that's not a time people want to be away from home.
Sure.
So we're literally having to realign our marketing and promotions for this conference that's happening in December, and check if the people who had already registered want to keep the registrations, or they are looking at refunds. But so far there have been very few refund requests now, whether that is because they haven't seen the date change or they really are happy to go ahead with December.
That sounds like true blessings there, Doris. So, as you say, not too many people jumping up and down requesting refunds. And what's the relationships been in terms of your suppliers with the postponements and deposits, etc.?
Well, thankfully on this occasion, because by the time the lockdown was announced, the suppliers hadn't been sort of finalized and locked down. We hadn't gone into any contractual agreements with the suppliers. So it was merely a question of, you know, saying that, guys, the date has been postponed. Will you be available? Those who are will. In terms of hotels now and accommodation, especially for the ones that were holding rates for periods in June or July, thankfully the hotels have been happy to keep the same rates, even though it's December. They've been happy to keep the same hotel rates. Yeah, the venues, as far as venue and hotels, they've really kept their rates as is. They have not changed those.
That is amazingly positive. We had a site chapter leaders call yesterday afternoon, and I've been hearing some horror stories coming out of Spain and certain parts of America. For instance, venues being closed down till the end of the year, venues, hotels, so they can't physically, you know, generate any income. Besides, a lot of venues and hotels are refusing to give deposits back.
Wow.
So it's interesting that there's such a mixed take on that. And the other interesting thing we've encountered, in fact, in Cape Town, talking to our convention bureau yesterday, is that with the postponements, there's suddenly a lack of availability in some of those venues, moving things 2, 3, 6 months out. Availability is becoming a problem. So, Johanna, let me redirect back to you. And what is your experience in Ethiopia on that?
It was interesting because we next week we would have been hosting a very large artificial intelligence conference that came out of California and coming into Africa for the first time, and had selected Ethiopia as a destination. And they pulled out and actually turned their entire event into an online event. Because for their next event had already been booked somewhere in Europe, so it wasn't an option to postpone. Because of the relationships that we have on the ground, we just had handshake type of agreements with all of the suppliers, the venues, and the hotels. Nothing had financially been deposited. There was one large group that had pretty much bought out the Sheraton, and actually paid 50% of their lodging costs, but the Sheraton honored and reimbursed the entire amount, as they considered COVID to actually be almost like a force majeure. And because it was beyond anybody's control, they completely understood and refunded their fees. So we haven't had to deal with any nightmarish situation by where refunds were not being honored or contracts. I mean, everybody's in the same boat in this case, and the vendors that we deal with and the suppliers have been more than understanding and saying, of course, we'll let you go from your commitments, as there's nothing else to be done. Like I said, some are still, because there's a postponement with no commitment on date. So the conferences or the meetings have been postponed, but even for the clients, it's almost like, let's wait and see where we're going with this. especially with the international ones. As you've said at the beginning, Africa has not been hit as hard, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the rest of the world. And we're just kind of waiting to see, are people going to be comfortable to fly? Are they going to be comfortable to be in the same room, regardless of what the WHO or what their countries are telling them? We really kind of have to feel it out and see how are people going to react. And I think, again, going back to your initial statement of, you know, do we then aggressively start looking at interregional conferences, you know, create content that's more relevant to the African fabric, I guess, and try to see how can we start that going until the rest of the world joins. But I guess it's yet to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Nina, what is your take on all of that?
I think that the hotels in South Africa have been really, really accommodating. And if any meetings have moved out that were booked originally in 2020 and they've moved out later on the year, obviously there hasn't been any cost implications and the contracts have been kept and also deposits have been paid. When I'm sort of like Yoden, I have a situation where a client sort of moved out, was going to have a meeting in July and moved it to November 2021. In that instance, the venue has actually said, well, we'll have a percentage rate increase, but that would have been normal. And I think that's the standard practice of any venue, is that there's an annual increment, and they have, you know, they've basically said that would be the terms and conditions. But what they've also been really, really accommodating with is that they've also looked at the deposit payments, realizing that cash flow for everybody is a tremendous challenge at this point in time. And obviously said, well, thanks for the deposits paid. We'll carry those across and we'll also recalculate those contracts. So that's sort of been the approach of most of the venues. And I have to say, you know, the realization that most of the venues are completely shut down. They will not be operating for any time very soon. Maybe September, I think, would be my indication if we're lucky, because I think venues, restaurants, any meetings are considered high risk in our country. And I think rightly so. I would like to support our government with this approach. And you know, so I think under these challenging circumstances, to be so graceful about it, whilst they are actually absorbing the financial impact, is really kudos to them, and really embracing the challenge and dealing with it in the best possible way. One of the interesting things is, I know that Paris, for example, my colleague works at the Paris Convention Center. And in Paris, their lockdown has been extended until the 11th of May, but any meetings and restaurants will only be reconsidered for opening mid-June. And, you know, they've already come out of a tremendously treacherous time with their deaths and dealing with the pandemic. And so if you look at that projected long area, I think that Africa is potentially, we're going to go into a longer area. And so potentially this year is really, really a challenge. I know that some colleagues who are working with scientists and doctors in New Zealand are indicating that potentially I know the New Zealand government have also lifted some of the restrictions and been initially very strict on it, but that those professionals and academics are not going to travel until there's a vaccine. Yeah. So, you know, that then all of a sudden, that realization, and scientists and participating as academics at one's meetings or contributing with the educational content, one then has to say as a PCO, how do we reinvent ourselves? And I think the hybrid, you know, some attendance and some virtual, and having a mix of that, I think that is what we're going to have to do to actually survive and offer our skills and support in that area until such time as face-to-face meetings and truly global meetings as we have known it are once again possible. Because I know from my perspective, I don't know if I just want to jump on an aeroplane and fly anywhere, even if it's just regionally, you know. I have a responsibility to my family. I have a responsibility to the people that I employ. And interestingly enough, we actually had a ICA MF management finance meeting the 4th and 5th of March this year in Paris. And on the 5th of March, South Africa actually identified the first COVID-19 patient. And I had made the decision not to travel at that time. And I must say I looked really blonde and stupid because everybody else was having beautiful French wine and eating delicious food and meeting and engaging with colleagues. And I then joined via Zoom. And for 2 days, I was just on a Zoom call. So I was sort of in an isolation, you know, during the meeting. But I think it is the right decision because our infections from South Africa have come from Europe because of the travel and the ports. And so I very much fully support our government closing our ports, closing our the airports, because, you know, we cannot afford to allow this epidemic to take hold of our communities. I mean, the other day on CNN in America, they had 1,400 deaths. You know, if you organize a conference for 1,400 people, imagine all those people are dead. And you have to deal with that volume of bodies and people, and then all the ramifications and the implications related to that. So whilst the economic impact is really terrible and going to continue being very hard and even harder for us as PCOs, I think we are going to have to reinvent ourselves. But I do support the lockdown, and I think it's for the greater good of everybody.
Thanks, Nina. Yes, it's quite a challenge at various levels. And Doris, I'm going to jump over to you now. In terms of the longer we are in lockdown, the less cash there is going to be. In fact, we know some restaurants and hotels and possibly even some venues will not be able to reopen. Are you in your area seeing any danger of possible venues or hotels that you've booked that you might have to shift because they won't be able to reopen?
See, for Rwanda, no, I'm not seeing, you know, that is definitely a possibility because things could look one way today and next week everything could look completely different. But so far, it doesn't look like it. May be possibly because the numbers are still extremely low. We're still on confirmed cases under 150 with no reported deaths. So that could be a reason. But so far, I mean, it all depends how everything goes. I mean, anything at this point, anything is possible. You know, the hotels are closed, obviously, because they've got no people staying. So hotels have closed. But if the lockdowns, even with the lockdowns reopening, as Nina said, people will still be reluctant. It's not like they're going to jump on a plane the very next minute, unless they have to. So chances are, they're going to remain closed for the long haul. But in terms of Rwanda, the calendar is amazingly booked out. You cannot get a date in Rwanda to host a conference as of October. It's chocker until the 15th
That's
of
good
December.
news.
Yeah, it is absolutely chocker. So are the hotels, essentially. So if all things remaining positive, that's going to continue being the case. If things don't, if things to make a turn for the worse, that could also change. But so far, with the calendar looking completely booked out from October and hotels as well up until the 15th of December. So that is really the forecast that we're looking at. In terms of Tanzania, you know what, let me tell you, Tanzania is a bit of a, we don't know what the situation there is because of no lockdowns or anything like that. When the rest of the world might be coming out of their lockdowns, they might be having to go to start to begin theirs. So
and do you know if any, is there any testing being done in that region? So numbers could be deceiving, what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, not random. I mean, not voluntary tests, but only if you're sick and they feel that maybe this is looking like it could be COVID-19, then you do get the test. But there are no tests just to check the situation. And so that's I really don't know in terms of testing.
So numbers
but business
could
wise,
be deceiving.
Yeah, business wise as well. The hotels have no people. They've closed really. The hotels are pretty much closed, as is the case with everywhere else. But we do. Yeah, we'll just have to play it by ear, to be quite honest.
I think the
The
financial
real
impact...
concern, nobody's going to be willing to jump on and travel just because it's open, unless you're going to see family. But for leisure and other things, no, that's going to take a while.
Yeah,
for sure.
100%. I think we've all kind of made peace with
Mm.
that fact. Jordan, if you look into your very muddy crystal balls, um, how do you think hotel and venue operations will survive over there?
It's going to be very difficult. I just read a report today that said about 85% of the hotels in Addis have either partially or fully closed. These are institutions that have a lot of debt because they had to take loans in order to build their hotels. The state of emergency has said nobody can be laid off because of COVID. So they have their overhead that still remains as is, while as they have absolutely no income. So the survival, the long-term survival of the hotels is quite scary. The venues, we don't have a lot of venues outside of hotels per se in Addis. The UN Conference Center will continue because, about 70% of their business is the UN anyway. The African Union will be just fine. We have one large center that the government has actually taken over as a COVID center in case we have a spike. So, when you look at the hotels, their pain is our pain as well. Well as PCOs, we could potentially say, let's experiment with this hybrid model where, we're trying to reinvent ourselves and remain relevant, at least in our case. We are a logistics company. We don't actually create content in the events industry. So, in the absence of actually, having to book hotels and, run around to make sure that the vendors are delivering for our clients and so forth, we're looking at the online platforms and saying, how do I remain relevant in a world of Zoom? What can I offer to a client that can just click, invite people, attendees, and then just run an event? Where do I add value? What are some of the platforms that would actually allow us to add value to it? So we can dabble in it. We can try to create content that's relevant. We can try to do different things. But then you look at your colleagues on the supply side, such as the hotels, and realize even if we're okay, they'll never be okay until people start traveling again.
Absolutely.
So we kind of have to look a little bit wider and say, how do we make sure that this events world continues to survive, even if it's pushed or postponed? How do we make ssure that the live events continues? And what role do we play as PCOs to ensure that our clients are actually comfortable to keep on traveling? Or like, initially said, even if it's not the international market, how do we ensure, like regionally, if we're safe enough, how do we ensure that we're meeting and sustaining the rest of the supply chain? So I think my concern is more on that end. And how do we make sure the industry survives this?
Yeah, absolutely. That supply chain, I don't think the general public would consider the impact the loss of tourism and events has on the destination. For instance, we had an event that was taking place in Cape Town in June for 10,000 people. This was postponed to December. And without any consultation with the local PCOs or the convention bureaus, they decided to cancel the event to the destination and go virtual. And I don't think people realize the impact. It's not just the airlines and the hotels. It goes down to your spend in the restaurants, the shops, the informal sector, the people who do the arts and craft markets on the street. Everybody's losing, including the suppliers that provide food and produce to the hotels and the restaurants and the markets. So it cuts down deep, and I think everybody's going to feel it. The longer we stay in lockdown and the longer there is no trade, the worse the pain is going to get. But that said, Nina, let's have a look at your crystal ball in terms of the local picture. What thoughts do you have?
Tes, I wanted to just respond to your comment about the 10,000 people. I hear the pain, and if one has a big event like that, and I know Doris, you mentioned the other day on another call we did that Figo was also changed or cancelled or postponed, with you guys in Rwanda. But I think the reality is that the associations also need to survive. And at the end of the day, if they don't have that revenue, from their membership engagement, they actually cannot sustain that association and the academic content and whatever. So I know it's very, very painful, and I completely agree with the knock-on effect of all the channels involved and the feed of that revenue. but that is actually them really going into survival mode. And I think then the crystal ball is we have to go into survival mode. How are we going to adapt to offer services? Because ours is really bringing people together and engaging. And I think there's still going to be a need for that until such time as we can go live. How do we bring virtual meetings to people to allow them to share academic content, to still be engaged, keep the momentum going, the marketing, the updates, and then we are going to all come together again in face-to-face, because I don't think anything will take away that face-to-face engagement that we have. I think I spoke to my team the other day and said, well, how are they doing? And okay, what are they going to do? And, you know, so some of the team was saying, well, they want to go shopping and they need to just get out and see the shops, you know. So I do employ mostly beautiful women. And some are saying, well, they just want to go to the beach, you know, just to go for a run on the beach, or take the kids to the beach, or get out the house, or but I think the big thing is also we want to see people. When I see my neighbor hanging her washing outside, I'm like, hello neighbor, and I'm like, you know, it's so fabulous to see a person and engage. So I think conferences and meetings will come back. I think the format they take, the cost implications and how we put together those meetings, what the distancing is, and all those requirements, that's a whole other 9-act ballet that we would need to address and look at as an industry and as a sector. But it will come back. We just need to survive in the interim and look after the people that work for us and engage with us as best we can, because we're also a little bit stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I am very positive, although things are really dire and terrible and cash flow is like non-existent. But this too shall pass.
It shall.
Engagement is so, the engagement part is so important. And as Nina said, associations, the meetings industry will be keen to get back on board as soon as possible. I mean, what we're seeing with the Rwandan calendar is testament to that. You know, they were happy to postpone to the next nearest available date, and there have been no cancellations. The only event that hasn't got a new date is the Commonwealth Heads of State meeting that was just announced yesterday that they're canceling. But they did say they're coming back. They just don't have another date. That could probably be because, you know, the dates are booked out. But yeah, people need the interaction. I mean, with our teams in Tanzania, we meet every day. I mean, I use this time to train the newcomers who had come on board, to just get them conversant with things that they didn't quite have time to be conversant with. So every day we have an hour training session, and it's good that we get together with the team in Tanzania and the team here, and we talk. I train them, I teach them, I give them content, I give them material to read about. I ask them to join these webinars just because I tell them, look, you can't, if you're not conversant, even the webinar won't mean anything to you. So yeah, we're using this time to really upskill the team and just sharpen, our little knives, because otherwise when all of this is over, you've got to be ready for whatever the change is. It's not the time to sit and relax and put our feet up, but do whatever we can. No cash flow is coming in, yes, but we certainly could sharpen our knowledge swords, find new ways of surviving. We do have to survive until this tide blows over. We have to survive. And the best way to survive is also to ensure that once it's over, you are ready and not stuck in what is now going to be deemed as history. You've got to know what the new normal is and be prepared for it, whatever that looks like. So yeah, now's the time for that.
Yeah, Doris, that is so proactive and positive. And we can definitely take a page from that, and I will definitely be sharing this with the rest of the world, and I hope other people can take something out of our discussion. As I said earlier, the threat of... So sorry, Joarden, please carry on.
I just want to say, I hope as Africa, we take bolder steps in narrating the new normal, and that we're not left in the wagon that just follows what the rest of the world is doing. I think we do have the opportunity to kind of show what the new normal in Africa would look like, and kind of be a little bit more aggressive and roaring and saying, you know what, this is the new normal in Africa. You want to come and play here, this is the this is the rule book that we put together, and as Africans, we all have the same, we agree at least, that we're not just kind of waiting to see what the rest of the world is going to do. So we all just go digital. No, they said now we should do this, so we should be doing this as well. It's like, look, take Nina, take Doris, take a whole bunch of other PCOs around the continent, and you have so many experts, especially out of South Africa. I'm now discovering, thanks to webinar, because they're widely accessible. There's so many smart people out there, but I feel like, one, we have never had, we were not given an opportunity to kind of find a common platform and actually talk to each other, because you go to this one event and you meet a few people, you go to this other event and you meet a few people, and then you kind of get completely distracted by your day-to-day and really don't get an opportunity to harness that power. And I hope that we take this opportunity to kind of say, what will be the new normal for Africa? Not just, let's just not wait for the rest of the world to tell us what is the new normal, and then we fall on that bandwagon yet again.
That's the best thing I've heard today, Martin. That is, in fact, what I was about to say and put to the panel. I think the crisis we're facing now is a fantastic opportunity for Africa to lift itself out of the previous, the rut that we were kind of forced into, and for intra-Africa business to start developing. However, we are going to need to get some barriers out of the way. We're going to need governments to help and participate and collaborate in order to make it happen. First of all, opening our African skies. I think there's been too many politics and personal agendas preventing that. I think now's the time for all of us to lobby it wherever and however we can. And opening up those borders, and South Africa, relax your visas, please. Not just South Africa, but I think, we're promoting tourism, but we make it darn difficult for people to get here. So quite a few things that we need to fix, but I do believe continental prosperity is a reality, and it's up to us to make it happen. So Nina, what is your take on that? Oh, you're muted. There we go.
Sorry, I think it's, I love what Joden has said, is that we must be leaders and not followers. And I think potentially because the pandemic and what has happened elsewhere in the world happened there, so we can actually use that information and see what they're doing and what is a better option. But I think we are a little bit stymied as the PCO fraternity, because there are only certain options that we can actually utilize for engagement, and how to apply ourselves and how to earn some revenue. So I don't, the crystal ball, where are we going? I think we need to deal with what we have, deal with what we can see on the ground, offer the best solutions that are there, think out the box, be a little bit creative, but we need to also realize the restrictions. I think it will be unrealistic to not realize that, and not to put too much pressure on ourselves either.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you envisage collaboration between companies like yourselves and other fraternities to possibly brainstorm and see how we can innovate, create, think out the box, come up with something that's possibly not been done before?
Absolutely, but I think it starts with an idea. Someone has to have some sort of an idea or concept, and then to, like Odin said, is working with people that are like-minded and to come up with that. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm also very open to working with opposition. We've got a big conference that we're managing that has now been moved to November, and from the outset, we engaged with another local PCO come DMC. Their strength is more DMC, ours is more PCO. And we said, look, let's rather split the business. We could have wanted to do all the business. I think to give the client the best option is the right approach. Maybe you get less of the cake, but maybe the cake that comes out and is baked at the end of the day is really, really magnificent, because you've all collaborated and you get a better product and it is more financially viable. And then obviously references. So I'm always happy to collaborate. That's why I belong to ICA, I belong to Starkey. I think different platforms, whatever it is, this platform Test that you've created, I'm very, very keen to collaborate. And I think that's important. I think the other thing that is that is happening more and more is because of the lack of cash flow and the financial challenges that we face, is I think that we're going to need to look at our structures, you know, offices in Joburg, Cape Town, and Durban, and rents and overheads. I think people are going to start working remotely. You know, you've got Microsoft Teams, you've got Zoom. I mean, how do you break it down to be cost effective and to offer a service to the client at a reasonable price? Because clients are also very cost conscious. And I think collaboration then also speaks to that, is to rather say, well, Yoden, you're really good at this. Why don't you do that part? I'll manage this part, and Doris has this section and Tes that section, and we collaborate together, and it's more cost effective. It's really a funky, fantastic product, and the client looks good, and we use our skill set that way. I don't think that's been done, Yoden. I don't know if that was what you were alluding to. I don't think we've ever done that, because people have always just been so threatened and looking after their territory that they're not prepared to really share and actually utilize the skills that are available to them within the industry.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, Doris,
in Rwanda, I think we do collaborate. Maybe not everyone, but we have seen the power and the strength that there is in collaborating. And sometimes we're very upfront to a client when we are bidding to say that, you know what, we are collaborating with A, B, and C, because each one has their own strength. So even as a client, you may have wanted to work with one provider, but we're saying that we'll be able to give you a better experience if we collaborate. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to cost you more, but it just means you're going to get a better cake. As Nina said, it's going to be a better end result, and that seems that it works like a charm. Nobody's everything on everything, so it's good to collaborate. We've collaborated with Jordan before in Tanzania, so you know it happens. It is the way to go. But I think more importantly, again, as PCOs, we are limited. We're completely limited at what we can offer. Our strength depends on what our convention bureaus or what our destinations are going to put in place, and then we come as an aftermath. We cannot lead the process. For instance, we're discussing with our team earlier this morning, and we said, you know, we'd like to arrange some kind of an online meeting or webinar with our local convention bureau here and our tourism board and ministry, because we don't have a convention bureau in Tanzania, and we have to have discussion with all the stakeholders. How are we going to collaborate together? This is not a one-person effort. It doesn't matter if as an individual PCO you think you're doing everything right, and if no one else is also doing the right things, then it's not going to have the impact that we wanted to have. It is a collaborative effort. The whole destination of the whole country must be aligned, and the whole continent must be aligned. I don't know which webinar it was, whether it was a webinar or a conversation I was having a few days ago. Yeah, it was actually, we were talking about, we really have to change the way we position Africa right now. It's no longer about just Ethiopia or just Tanzania or just Rwanda. It has to be about how we are repositioning Africa to get the confidence back in Africa as a region. An individual country, it's not going to work anymore. It really isn't going to work, and that's how we've been working. We've been working as individual little countries, but now we have to think as a United States of Africa, so to speak, and just, you know, really, really be proactive to see what can we do for Africa. What can we do for Africa? We have to team up with the tourism board. It's no longer now just about business travel. We can team up with the tourism boards that exist and see, guys, this affects us all. Whether it's business travel, whether it's leisure tourism, it affects us all. And together we must put measures in place and proactively get back on our feet. So we can't separate these entities anymore. We have to work together until that time that we're back on our feet. So yeah, we're very good at talking collaboration. Yeah, we're good at talking collaboration. We're just not that good at actually doing it. So now's the time. If we don't learn anything from this COVID-19 situation, we need to learn to really collaborate and not just say that we want to or that we should do, but we really ought to. And I'm glad platforms like these, I haven't spoken to Jordan in ages. I don't think I saw Nina during this Meetings Africa. I don't know if you I think you were there, but we're all over the place. We're in the same building, but we never get to meet. Tes, I met you, I saw you every single day, but I didn't see everybody else. But now, as a result of this, here we are. And once all this is over, we're going to be stronger together. And yeah, that's just the way to go.
That's
But I
fantastic.
also just wanna,
That's
can I just add?
sorry, Jordan. Yeah, carry on.
Oh, so, but I also would like to take the collaboration further out. Nina, I know you know this very well. The ICA used to try to pull the African associations and the PCOs to come together and like trade business and then, share one event together. And there was was the willingness really there? The last one was canceled, I think, because one, there weren't sufficient people who actually signed up and we couldn't get it to a price where it was affordable for everybody. But I think if we're going to say we need to start trading, if the rest of the world is not going to be ready to come to South Africa, and we need to start narrating our new normal, is we really need to show that we know how to trade amongst ourselves. So it's really to talk to the hotels and say, look, we're no longer at an age where you're going to charge $150 a night. You're going to have to be okay with just charging half that price. It could be at a full board. Like the entire pricing structure have to kind of say, look at the neighbor and say, what can you actually afford when they come to Ethiopia, and so forth. So it's like, if there's let's say a coffee association that wants to take place, that has taken place in Ethiopia, and the whole point was to encourage them to go to Rwanda. But then the pricing structure in Rwanda has to be as attractive, if not better. So it's like, how can we make sure that our African participants, our African farmers, our African roasters and traders and so forth can actually afford to go to another African country better than to go to a European country? How can we make sure that our borders are open enough, like you said earlier? How do we make sure that Ethiopian Airlines is not as arrogant as they used to be, saying, you know what, I can actually afford, you don't have any other connectivity option but to take Ethiopian Airlines, so what is my motivation to reduce my price? That has been their approach. So it's to say, because you need to actually have a base of consumers that actually appreciate the service and actually see you're there to serve them. So if we can actually, look at pricing along the value chain and start trading conferences amongst ourselves genuinely, and not just make, lip service because ICA asked us or somebody else asked us, I think we can do a lot, have a bigger impact, not just, because I need something out of Nina in South Africa and Nina needs some service out of, from Yoadan in Ethiopia, but rather really look at the bigger picture and say, how can I ensure this conference next goes to Nina? Then how can Nina make sure it goes to Doris? Like, those kind of really genuine, intention-driven trading.
I think that's what Doris says, is we say we're ready to collaborate, but to your point, we're not. And maybe you just see the business as a cash cow, and it's not going to work like that. You're going to have to come to the party to make that trading possible, and that will then lead to the affluence of the entire continent.
Absolutely. Guys, I realize that we've got 4 minutes left and Nina has to run. I think in conclusion, the important takeaways for me right now is that we all agree collaboration is the way to go. Also important, and everybody's touched on that, is to make sure that you collaborate with a different skill set. Let it enhance your business rather than compete with yourself. And from my point of view, my business, we've done it quite frequently, teaming together people with a specific skill set in bidding for business. We don't always win the business because somebody's always either cheaper or better located, whatever the case might be. But it's bringing those different skill sets together and enhancing your offering. So with that, any closing words from the panel? Doris, start with you, then Yoadan, and then Nina, and then we can sign off. Over to you, Doris.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tes, first of all, for putting this together, because this is the first webinar that I have attended that is PCO specific. So we're able to talk about things that are pertinent directly to our business. And I hope there'll be more. Because who knows how long we're going to be in this. But thank you so very much. And yeah, we're always learning. Every little session, there's always a takeout that you might not have thought about. There's always something that you can incorporate and start applying in your own situation. So I'm really, really happy about this. So thank you.
Thanks, Doris. Thanks for joining us. Joaden, over to you.
Yeah, just echoing Doris, and also just adding, you know, I do believe that whatever we say and the energy we put out there actually comes back to us. So I think let's roar louder as Africans and start saying we're going to narrate our own new normal and we're going to make it come true.
Fantastic, fantastic. Nina, final words from
I
you.
just want to ditto both what the ladies, I think, said, Doris and Joden, and I think they've summarized, and I think we are really powerful individually, but collectively even more powerful. So I look forward to future collaborations with all of you ladies and within our sector, within the continent. Thank you, Tes, for the opportunity.
Likewise. Fantastic. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see 2 weeks or so from now who's still locked down and what's happening, and then maybe have a catch-up chat then. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
All the best, Joden. Bye, Nina. Bye,
Bye, Bill.
Joden.
Bye-bye now.
Bye, Doris.
Ciao.